Okay, I'm not the most faithful at making videos, and but at the moment, I just felt I ought to perhaps share a little bit here the Star Cruiser capital vessel. That's one of the ones I've been kind of pleased with, but yet I also want to make some significant changes. Um, so one of the things when I made the Star Cruiser capital vessel at the time, it was my largest capital vessel. I couldn't imagine making anything bigger. I've since changed my ways on that. Um, Although among my completed capital vessels, the ones I've actually completed, it is my largest. However, it is size class 3 because my first experience with a capital vessel was the green saddlebag. I wasn't calling it back then that, um, but that was my first capital vessel, and when I was building it, as I built the capital vessel, I hit that I was like halfway completed and size class 6. So I ended up, trying to figure out why is my size class just screaming through the roof, and ended up like pulling out all these pipes. I mean, I really thought the engineering was going to look really nice, just look beautiful, but my size class was out of control. So I ended up stripping all this stuff down, managed to finish the capital vessel and still be size class 5. But I really, you know, I got a little scared on this stuff. So then when I built the Star Cruiser, a little bit bigger, and there's a reason for that. And as I built it, it ended up instead of being size class 5, size class 3, even though it's a bigger capital vessel and stuff. And in the process, since I was so scared, I didn't really put into the Star Cruiser some of the stuff I really wanted. I was too afraid. I was afraid of taking this size class up through the roof again. So hopefully maybe that I've gotten a little better with building stuff. Maybe I can pull off a little bit of what I want and still keep it to say size class 5. That'd be my goal. So I'm going to show you here the Star Cruiser and a little bit as we go through that, a little bit of tour of some of the various works in progress and stuff. Okay, I'm going to use the Red Darner here, which is a prototype small vessel. I haven't quite finished it yet, but most of it's kind of there. A little bit more work yet to go. But we're going to start off here. The reason I spawned in a blue hawker next to these is because as small as this small vessel is, this and the original version of it, which was actually a little narrower before they introduced the warp drive and stuff, the blue hawker is the Star Cruiser scaled up and converted. Granted, you don't get a nice big version of the cockpit, so I kind of built my own front end on it. You don't get the nice big wings in capital vessels, so kind of built my own capital version of the wings. On the Star Cruiser here, some portions of this is 2 blocks thick. The wings out there, they're 1 block thick in many respects. The pods are 2 blocks thick. Much of the other armor through the vessel is 2 blocks of combat steel thick. Weak points being the window up front for sure, and a few other points as well. There's actually is a combat cockpit on this thing. Stuff. It was designed so that you could. Looks like I was doing some stuff and ended up saving the blueprint with a hole in it. Actually, I had almost, even though this is the blueprint, other than that damage there, It should be the blueprint on Steam stuff with everything intact, unless I'm mistaken about that. This is the blueprint that's on the Steam Workshop, and for a moment there I thought I had lost it on my personal computer because I was going around. I hadn't updated the blueprint on Steam, but I had certainly been working on it in the background. But I had a backup of the blueprint, and that's what this is. Stuff, and apparently in there. But I was messing around, checking out. Probably over here is trying to figure out how deep I had that. These points were designed so that you could, that there was still armor behind them. You could pull them out and stick in the fixed guns there. Now I probably would have put antennas there. The Star Cruiser is supposed to be a medical vessel, and this one here completed actually has its gravity generator. So I have the medical devices and stuff, and this was built back in Alpha 6, so things have changed a little bit since then. But this is the Star Cruiser. I put all the medical vessel devices through and a few other things, but it's just a centralized medical facility. We go over to the wing pod. We have our gravity generator, RCS. I want to say that back behind here we can navigate through. We'll find some fuel tanks, O2 tanks. This was designed so that if you blew up a fuel tank, that's all it's going to blow up. It's just the one fuel tank. It's a common thing that I end up doing with a lot of my designs. Same with the ammo box. Ammo box blows up. That's about what blows up is the ammo box. Other than doing some damage to some of the blocks around it, but so we have a shower, throw in a bed, a couple that stuff. We have this is the forward cockpit. This is, as I said, one of the weak points. There is a combat cockpit on this thing. One of the features that wasn't planned but ended up working out nicely here, as I ended up diverting from the staying strictly to the form of the Blue Hawker, is this rear hangar that actually is big enough for I want to say the Thunder Naiad tank. So I've actually used this to transport my tank around. I also can throw in one of the small vessels back here, and not my bigger ones, but say like the Hawker or the Darters. I can, even the new Darner over there can also fit back here. So, if we go up here, oops, one up, medic station. Just two constructors. We have our primary engineering back here, which will extend into these rear pods. I ended up putting a second gravity generator on this thing, one towards the front, one towards the back. And here we have more fuel tanks. Everything again compartmented so that a explosion should not be catastrophic. And our cage around the warp drive. Other side is pretty much a mirror of that. This, overside, we have a little crew entertainment room. On that other side, the O2 in the medical station. We go through here to a little crew quarters of sorts. Little cafeteria. Some bathrooms. This door here is mostly for the O2 seal. Here's our battle bridge. right off this elevator right here. And the battle bridge, I believe, is in underneath one of the areas where it's 2 blocks thick. You know, one of the thicker sections of the vessel. So let's go before I just drift off, coming off the ramp. I probably should have flown the Red Darner over there. But oh well. Red Darner, as you can see, it's not quite completed. Let me state a couple things here. One, in the middle of all this noise here, well, the engines, the Red Darner here is going to get at least one, if not two, fake medical beds, a division up here to divide the cockpit from the main hold. Of course, a lot of this is still yet to be sealed in. May end up adding some more RCS, and the core is probably going to be relocated as well. This is supposed to be like a ambulance, granted, you know, quite well armed, and a fair bit of thrusters there. So there is a total of what, 12 weapons on this thing. I think it's, you pull it out. I know that each side is mirrored to each other. We have pulse lasers, rocket launchers, and the homing rocket launchers. So 4 of each. If we grab our seat here, it's a double layer window here, so for a better view we'll go third person. Okay, so the Star Cruiser there, that's as I said, other than the flaw in it, that is the one that's on the workshop. That is the one where I got paranoid. Then I decided to start remodeling it. One, to do more with the interior, what I really wanted to do in the first place. You might have noticed that the hull is just full of turrets on the outside. Other than maybe a little more difficulty in placing both artillery turrets, but the Star Cruiser is really intended to have quite the armament. For a medical vessel, it's, there's a reason that a lot of the hull is two blocks of combat steel thick. It is supposed to be a capable combat vessel as well. Now this may not be as noticeable, but changing some of the shapes here a little bit, breaking away from the still a lot of the Blue Hawker in its shape, but breaking away, shifting some of the shapes a little bit. I'm actually making some of the more of the vessel 2 blocks thick. I got working out both artillery turrets on this thing. One of the big changes for this, for the Star Cruiser, in addition to the interior work, is that the space on the back, this on the top up there was a space prepared that you could, on the original, park the space, let's see, the space skimmer or the swift skimmer. Those small vessels can fit up there on top. They won't fit in the hangar, they're too big for that, but they can land on top, dock there. You have a airlock, which I failed to show you, but it is an airlock onto the top of the vessel that you get right to have a short spacewalk to your vessel. This one here, it actually got widened up there a little bit, and that's because I have added to my planned vessels for the Dragonfly Industries is a larger vessel. I'm calling the Hymolymph, and you can kind of see that over there. It's intended for, granted the Thunder Naiad can fit in the hangar, the rear hangar of the Star Cruiser. The Hymolymph, though, is a small vessel based on the premise that they will make HV-SV docking a reality at some point. It was part of a official feature poll, and so it was kind of seemed to indicate that that may be an actual feature they implement at some point. So for now, it's just a prototype SV. I've got it floating over there. It's designed to be able to lift about 250 tons up beyond its own mass. 250 metric tons, that is. Since I believe a lot of these things are measured in metric unless I tell it otherwise to do the other system, which I've just left it to its defaults on that. But yeah, it's so that should fit up on top there. I've tested that, so some of the arrangement with that. As I said, this one I'm flying will fit in the back. And the reason all those turrets are on there is my goal was to keep that thing to size class 5, even with every possible weapon on it. So the idea was I was building it with all of them on there, and then when I was done, I would strip them off until there was just a quantity fairly similar to the original Star Cruiser. Let's go. I don't think I have anything. Okay, this might actually be easier to do this way. Oh. Well, not gonna let me conveniently just pull right on in. Okay. So here we have our hangar. Pretty much the same hangar as before. Maybe a little modifications just to clean things up a bit. I did move those other auxiliary doors stuff. And as we come up here, we look at this refit that I was working on, making things thicker, making it tougher, stuff. A lot of it's not finished yet. A lot of the spot would have been, putting in more fuel tanks, more O2, finishing up. I don't have a crew quarters yet. I don't have the cafeteria and stuff. But if we move forward here, I really did like what I did with the bridge here. Borrowed someone else's idea of the 2 stairs facing each direction. So if the vehicle is sloped, you should be able to still get up one or the other. This stuff. But it's kind of like, oh yes, I like what I did with the bridge. But my favorite part is actually the main hold of this. Bear with me. Oh, and I believe I do have a gravity generator on there, so I can actually just turn off my... Oops, went too far. I was actually building this to be the medical center I really wanted it to be. We have here a counter here, almost like we have a nurse's station, just kind of smack, in the middle of this thing here. So you kind of like you can't get through the doors without hitting it, being seen and hitting it. Granted, we do have our wing engineering here. That's the stuff. So I have a couple sentry guns in here. Yeah, but that was just a matter of in this case, there was no easy way if I was building the medical center, except to have the these auxiliary engineering right off of it. But little rooms. I have the cryo chambers, but various little rooms, like you actually have various treatments and surgeries and whatnot in these rooms. So essentially some treatment rooms. And okay, that was a treatment room. Now if we go down this hall past another couple counters, we actually have some patient rooms, whether they be recovery or admittance. And I actually have airlocks, double door airlocks. And I really was enjoying how this was turning out. I'm like, oh, this is what it should have been. Now I'd still have a struggle to finish all the rest of this thing and still keep it to size class 5. As you can see right now, if we go over here, stuff, and it may not show up too well on YouTube, but this is a size class 3.14. So I had a little wiggle room yet before I was up to size class 5. But that was one of those things. I'm like, oh yes, this is working out. So very nice. I like it. This, as you can see, a lot of it's unfinished. The thing is, this has been a on and off project. I'll do a little bit, then I'll work on another blueprint. I'll do a little bit. I have this habit of jumping around blueprints and working a little here and working a little there. And sometimes, I think it works. Sometimes it works out for the best that way. Other times I'm going, well, I'm not getting anything finished. Well, it turns out in the delay of getting this done, they introduced retractable turrets. Well, these here, I'm going to move a little bit. Okay. Let's get out of this noisy thing. Okay, there's a space skimmer I left parked on top of that one. I believe I was using this in my creative game to move things around. It's a capital vessel, and it was convenient to, dock something on there and move things around. Well, they introduced the retractable turrets. But a lot of these turrets are placed on here based on the standard turrets. So the retractable turret, I would need an I square. The problem I have with like the artillery turrets is I actually need, the hull is 2 blocks thick. Yes, I could dig out a square sufficient for that artillery turret, but if someone comes along, one of the things that's going to be targeted is turrets. A very valid target selection is to aim for the turrets. Well, that means if someone's aiming for my turrets, they take out that artillery turret, my hull that's 2 blocks thick, blow up that artillery turret, I have immediate breach of the hull. So I was looking at redesigning this so I would, have thicken things up even more, change things around, accommodate these retractable turrets that didn't. I was like, oh, like in that looking spot, I could throw a retractable turret there, no problem. The hull's 2 blocks thick, so I still have another layer of combat steel underneath, even after they blow up the turret. But I've started looking at, well, what if a lot of the turrets, I can't do the concealed thing very well with them. So I started looking at expanding and making the vessel bigger, the main body. I was really looking at, really changing some of the shape. I was probably going to be moving the pods out a bit, shrinking the wings, so that it would, there would be even more of it that's 2 blocks thick, and really try to accommodate these retractable turrets. probably still having some that never retract, but having really trying to take advantage of that. So we have the one I was remodeling, then a revision of it because a new change in the game. But one of the things I looked at as I was doing that, I'm like, I ended up the patient facility. The thing I was so pleased with and really liked, I was exposing it as I was moving the walls. Yes, that would give me more space to do maybe a better patient facility, maybe move things around a little bit. Maybe I, repatch this wall, and maybe just there's something in between the wall and the outer wall of the vessel and the patient facility. There are things I could try and work with on this, but I was as I was pulling things out and working things around, I was breaching the whole the facility. And so I was like, well, if I'm really messing with that, then the question went through my mind, well, I'm doing all this work here. Well, what if I just started from scratch? And the original Star Cruiser is built around the Blue Hawker, just an upscaled version and stylized representation of the Blue Hawker. Well, what if I went it's supposed to be my medical vessel, and I now have the Red Darner, which is my small vessel that I'm going to make it look a little like a patient's transport. In fact, if we look in here, we'll find the Orange Darner, one I built for Jennifer's challenge. And in many respects, the Orange Darner here, I should probably thank Jennifer for that challenge, because it really changed up the way I did things. And the Orange Darner, because I ended up doing this to get it to fit in the space of that challenge, I ended up dropping the wings off the side. Well, that ends up being the inspiration for the Red Darner, having some of the 4 pods like the Dragonfly Industry small vessels typically have, but not the 4 wings off those pods. So he ends up with a thicker body, fair bit of thrusters and stuff. Well, if we go pull over here, bear with the noise of the vessel. With some stylized differences, this hull, there is no generators, there is no fuel tanks. There are the thruster placements that I was playing around with. The turrets, I want to say that there is a full grouping of turrets on this thing. All the energy weapons I could put on, all the particle weapons, all the projectiles or whatever. So it's got a full selection of weapons on it. Even 2 artillery turrets. But with the retractable weapons, with them all retracted, it looks peaceful. So I'd have my like the Star Cruiser is intended to be, a medical vessel with significant combat capabilities. It's got the two blocks thick, or I was working on that. The stuff. I I don't think this hull actually has the 2 blocks thick yet. I was preparing to do it. Maybe I already started working on it. But one of the issues I hit as I was doing this, I'm watching the size class climb. And I was looking at it and thinking, okay, I'm risking, yes, I've got a long ways to go. Yes, there's tricks I can use that I've to try to keep the size class from screaming out of control. But one of the things I can do is try to bring down that triangle count. A couple things that would help with that is to cut down the dimensions. Now I didn't cut them down a whole lot, but if we look at this one over here, it looks probably to be very similar in size, but if we were to look at the thrusters up here, they're placed differently. And the way they're placed actually made me look bigger, but in reality it's actually smaller. I just ended up, where in this case over than this one, there was a nice even number. I put the 2 thrusters right next to each other. They work, the 2 big thrusters, dividing the width of 4 in that space I had there worked nicely. 2 thrusters, and then I have the smaller thrusters on the slope. Well, in this case, the gap was originally going to be 3 there, a bare 3. Well, that doesn't divide nicely with 2 thrusters that take 2 blocks each. They were bigger than the space, so I ended up doing some modifications with that. So I shrunk this thing. Is actually it's just across the board 1 block shorter. Granted, I ended up adding that spire there on top, so it might be considered just as tall. But that's a guide for landing the Hymerlymph or other small vessel docking on the top of the vessel. It's kind of like this. This is where you don't want to go further than this forward. Kind of line yourself up in the middle. Use that as a visual reference of the docking, the pad on the top, and marks where the airlock is. But yeah, it's 1 block narrower. One of the things, as I've been looking at it over the other Star Cruisers, I ended up adding a hangar in front. I liked it so much that I kept it over here, and I'm really liking some of this is turning out. That if I can keep this one I'm working on down to size class 5, no bigger than size class 5. Granted, I think I can get up to like 5.4, and it'll still round it to 5, in your general stuff. So as long as I can keep it to size class 5, this will become the Star Cruiser. So let's go take a look at it. There's still a lot of the interior that's unfinished. But with it being 1 block narrow, it actually works out nicely here for these concealed turrets. In fact, let's go and let's turn all the weapons on. Take a look at this thing. I even went as far as giving it some mining lasers. That is the Star Cruiser, and I went had a little fun. I know I don't normally put the main names of the vessels on the vessels. I'm not quite in the habit of that. That's a detail I usually skip. But I ended up putting Star Cruiser on this. Okay, the red and white color pattern. I want to say the far one over there is more like a red or more of a white and orange. But white and red, giving a bit of the same theme. You'll find that instead of side hangar doors, I just kept some side airlocks, a little bit differently than before. that rear hanger is big enough for the it's basically is big enough for the Thunder Naiad or the uh, um, Red Darner. So I can either get the small vessel in there. The front one here happens to be actually big enough for the Orange Darner. Now I haven't tested it with the walls in place, but I was testing it a little bit before I had the walls, just kind of like getting a feel for how well, and I believe, I'm not going to do the test right now for you, but I believe I could actually, the Orange Darner is small enough and short enough that I was able to actually spin it or turn it to a 180 in this space and get it turned around. So it'll be nice if that still holds true. Stuff. Okay. Now the hangers are one of the weak spots still on the vessel. Seeing how that the this is only one block thick, so that I accommodate my ramps for something to drive up in here into this hangar. That's because some other spots on the lower hull actually are a little bit extended a little bit down to give it a little more shape down there and whatnot. So this hangar itself is the floor is one block thick, which is why the ceiling and walls are also combat steel. So even though the hangar itself may only have one layer, the primary vessel you'll still have to breach 2 layers of combat steel to get to the primary capital vessel. Now we check back here. Now I'm going to have to keep you. Don't have a gravity generator on this thing yet. I don't know if I'll need 1 or 2. So bear with me. Okay, so, but here we have some patient rooms. We have our cryo chambers. So it's looking a little bit different. We have what basically could be our nurses station. Now we have our medical station and cloning station right down here in the hallway. And if we go through this door, we have 1 treatment room, getting us half of our specialized medical devices. 2 of them there, and the other 2 over here in our other treatment facility. And then if we go back here, we have our airlocks, and this side isn't worked up yet. The other side is worked up. So if we go down here, extending ramp on a motion sensor. I even set up so it extends a bit out. Okay. And then if we go, here we have our rear hangar. And now the interior of this thing, since I'm using a upscaling a small vessel that actually starts in bulkier and more space inside of it, there is a lot more space in here to work with. So this, I'm going to have to be careful to keep this thing to size class 5, but there is a lot of space to work with. Don't have my warp drive yet. I just have I have some minimum generators and fuel tanks, partly because I wanted to, as I'm building this stuff, one of the things I have to consider is lights and their impact, for lighting the interior, as well as their impact on size class, because they hit it hard. They both count as devices, and they count on a light count, where you get penalized for the lights. So I need sufficient light to light the interior, but I also don't want to get too carried away. So I needed power so that when I'm figuring out, okay, I have sufficient lights. It may not be the best lit here, but it'll work. It'll work. And so, and checking out the hangar. Okay, I got lighting here. The other hangar has lighting. So it was just it was one of those things. I needed power because I was working on the interior of this thing, and we'll see. I may how these how the size class goes. I mean, I do have to add crew quarters. I realized I forgot bathroom facilities here in this medical quarters, but I may just let that slide and just put them nearby up the elevators or something like that. So this place as it is pretty much what I intend it to be. And who knows, maybe I'll slide some facilities off there and off there, put some doors at the end of the halls and stick them there, but I don't think so. I think we're getting close to the on the other side of that being thrusters and generators on the other side. So we're starting to hit engineering sections, which I'll probably do alternate access into those instead of doing it the way I had done on the other vessel, so that the medical facility hopefully won't be leading right into the engineering. But again, yes, I still put a couple sentry guns in here. I figured they're probably a little paranoid, so if their medical ship doubles as a warship, then yeah, maybe inside the vessel reflects that too. So okay, well, there, little tour of the Star Cruiser. And as you can see, one of the let's take a little look at one of the differences on the back end here between as when I chopped it down in the size. Again, I ended up spreading the engines the thrusters apart a little bit, so it probably makes it look like it's bigger back here, when in reality it is a block shorter in height to these pods. But I ended up having to move the engines apart a little bit to accommodate the fact that you just can't fit two thrusters 2 blocks tall in a 3 block tall space. Whereas these ones, I mean, I like how it works out a bit here, but when I chopped off a block of space right through there, I really had to rethink the placement of the thrusters. So, okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed your little tour of the Star Cruiser. Oh, it's noisy in here. I'm going to get out of here. Okay. I'll probably use it to get around in just a bit after I'm done with this video. But I figured, even though I may not get that capital vessel finished anytime here in the near future, I am very pleased with how it's coming. And stuff. And as I said, that far one over there, the most recent one, that will become the Star Cruiser as long as I can keep it down to size class 5. If I can't, if I fail, then it's probably that one over there. I go through the pain of remodeling it yet again to try to get it where I would like it, to accommodate the new retractable weapons, so it can have that nice peaceful look while being well armed. Even if it ends up with something that's kind of looking more like the original Star Cruiser, where it still has a bunch of weapons on it, but not as many as the vessel is capable of holding. So if it can, just have that, slightly peaceful look. But I really like how this one's, how it looks so that when you retract all the, tract all those turrets, you don't have any of those turrets showing other than the fact that you can pick them out on the hull and stuff. But yeah, that's a little introspection on the Star Cruiser and a little tour of the stuff. And I am not finishing all of these. And when I finish it, I will probably, my plan is to just replace the Star Cruiser that is there. I would like to try to minimize how many blueprints I am trying to manage. I know some people just produce a new blueprint and that stuff, but in this case, other than maybe do a tour of it when I completed it and put out a video of that or something like that, or links saying, hey, I've finished this. For the most part, it's probably going to be just the people who subscribe that will even know that, and that's if they use it. They're like, hey, he's changed it. And who knows, maybe there's a bunch of people subscribe to it because it is size class 3 for its, fairly good size capital vessel for a size class 3. At least for me, what I put out. So it's possible that, some people are like, oh yeah, well now it's no longer size class 3, it's size class 5, or whatever it ends up being. But as I said, it's a good chance I'm probably going to be pushing it closer to size class 5 with a goal to stay no bigger than that. And maybe it'll have slightly better performance. And instead of having to build and add all the weapons afterwards, they'll be included. Okay, well, have a good day. Enjoy. Now that I spun myself around. Okay. And stop.